Welcome everyone to another Photoshop tutorial. In today's tutorial I want to show you how I made this portrait effect, and for this I used an image by Rick Burke. I want to thank him for letting me use one of his portraits. He's a photographer from New York, and I'll put a link to his website on the video description and also on my website. But the important thing about this tutorial is not the image, the portrait. You can use any portrait you want. You can try any image. In fact, I used this on two separate images, and you can see that the result is the same. So as usual, I will start over again, and I will close this and start by creating a new document. And the canvas size that I will use for this is this. I'll use 1200 for the width and 1500 for the height in pixels, of course. And let's name this and click OK. So that's our canvas. We'll start with this texture, which will be our background. So open that in Photoshop. Now, as you can see, this is a high resolution image, so it depends on the canvas size that you're using. You might want to make it smaller. So I will copy this and paste it here on my canvas, and I'll put it somewhere here. I will not resize it, but one thing I will do is clean all these lines here and all these spots. And you can use the patch tool, the spot healing brush tool, whatever you like. Just clean this up a bit, like that. And for this line here, I will use the patch tool. Make sure I have this on source. Select the entire line, and probably on the edges will not look too nice. We'll see. Well, it's not that bad, so I'll leave it like that. This will be my background. So the next thing I will do is I will add some texture here, but first I want to add the portrait here so that I know where to add those textures and all that kind of things. So I'll open this image. As I said, you can use any image, it's not really that important. So edit, copy, and I'll have to make it smaller and press enter. The next thing I need to do is mask the background, and you don't have to be too precise here, because we will turn this into black and white and we will add those colors, and it's not necessary to be really precise. So get the soft brush and start masking all the background. And you can see that because of the gray background there, I'm blending it a lot better with the background. But if your image is not like this one, there's no problem. Just mask the hair with the soft brush, and that's it. Okay, and the next thing we have to do is turn this into black and white, and you could use the hue saturation and just reduce the saturation, but it's not looking good. What you want to do is use the black and white adjustment, because this adjustment layer allows you to change the brightness of each tone separately. You have all these channels here. You want to have a high contrast image. Make sure you don't add too many highlights on the face, because later on we will add some shapes here using the soft light blend mode, and if you have this completely white, you will not be able to see them. So try your best. And well, let's see. Okay, something like that. And we'll use levels as well to increase the contrast, especially here on the hair. And I think we might have too many highlights here on the face, so reduce the yellows just a bit. Now that we have a basic setup here, you can use the paint splatter brushes, and I have a few of them here. So select any brush set that you find on the internet and use a gray color, not a completely black one, and just paint a few splashes of paint. Let me use another. This is a watercolor brush set, and just something like that. Don't repeat your strokes, change the brush every time. I don't like that one. Maybe this one is better. Just add a few abstract strokes like that. You can start adding some color to these using more paint splashes. And I will paint this on a new layer, which I will name color paint. And I'm using the stains brush set. Let's replace that. Well, it's the same one. Just use a few colors and paint some random paint splashes using different colors. Add some green and use another brush. So just change your brush every time. Let's add some red as well. And let's see which brush I could use. Okay, something like that. As you can see, it's not too many. I didn't add too many colors, but that's okay, just a few touches. And once you're done with that, you can start making those lines on the hair. And I use the pen tool to add all those white lines. So create a new layer, get the pen tool, select the paths option here on the top left. But before you start drawing the paths, make sure you set the brush to white, the foreground color, and reset your brushes. Reset brushes because you need a hard edge normal brush. And let's see what size we need for this. Let's try with 5 pixels. It's too thick. Let's go with 3. Well, I like 3 pixels. So once you select your brush, set the hardness to 100, set your size, and open the brushes window. You can do that if you have it here or from the window and select brush, and it will open this window here. And activate shape dynamics and make sure the control is set to pen pressure, and all these options here are set to 0. Now go back to the pen tool, select the paths, and start drawing a few paths. Make sure you follow the lines of the hair because it will look a lot more natural. So just make a few lines like that. And once you have the path, right click and choose stroke path. And check simulate pressure and click OK. And that will draw this line. And just repeat the same process as many times as you want to cover the hair. As I said, just follow the hair, the natural lines of the hair. So you do this over and over again until you cover most of the hair part. And I will pause the video now and make the rest of the lines and then come back. So I'm done with the hair now, and you can also make this kind of lines over the shapes of the face, like for example here, to mark the contour of the face. So just trace a path around the face and stroke the path again, and I'll also do that here on the lips. And also here on the nose. This is just this is up to you. If you don't want to add this, don't add them, but I like how it looked. So okay, that's all with the lines. I made all of them on the same layer, but you can use separate layers if you want to. Now the next thing that I did is add some adjustments to the portrait, and I added a gradient map as a clipping mask. So right click and choose create clipping mask, and I selected this gradient and then I customize it. And for the shadows I used the code 082059, and I left this one to the default. So click OK, and the blend mode that I used for this is screen, and the opacity is 30%. Actually, you could leave it as a normal layer if you see it looks too yellow here, and then this it's black and white. So if it doesn't look too nice, just release the clipping mask, and that way you will affect the entire layer, and you will have a more even effect over the entire image. Another adjustment layer that I used is color balance, and right now I will make it as a clipping mask, and after that I will see if I will release that clipping mask and affect the entire image. So for the shadows I used -8, 0 and 3. For the midtones I went with 6, -3 and -3, and for the highlights I left them all to 0. So that's the effect I got with this two adjustment layers. I just wanted to add just a bit of color. And let's see if we release the clipping mask. Well, with these two adjustment layers you can try making them as a clipping mask or to affect the entire layer. In this case I didn't use them as clipping mask, but it depends on the image that you're using. Then I used the photo filter, and I used a custom color, and I set the density to 46% and the blend mode to soft light and the opacity at 25%. And this is just to add a bit of contrast, as you can see, and it also makes the image a bit it adds a bit of blue. I still don't like the highlights here, so I'll go back to the levels and see if I can. Actually, I have to go to the black and white and maybe decrease the highlights, make the yellows a bit darker, something like that. And after that you can add those colors on the hair, and I'll show you how I did that. I used two stock images for that. I downloaded them from DeviantArt, so you'll have the links to download them. They're free. but make sure you credit the authors when you publish your work. So select all, copy, close it. In order to be able to use those images here, you will have to use them as a clipping mask. So I have to paste them here above the adjustments, and right click and choose create clipping mask and make them smaller. With Ctrl T I loaded the free transform, and now I'm just making the image a bit smaller to cover my portrait, and press enter. And now I will change the blend mode to lighten, which is here. And as you can see, this image is not only visible over the darker parts of the image. We'll still have to use a layer mask to cover some of the colors that are spilling here on the image. So create a layer mask for it. Get a soft brush and paint with black over the area of the face where you don't want that color to be. If you like how it looks, just leave it like that, but I want to have the face to be visible, especially if it's a person that you know and you want people to recognize who is in that photo. Use a layer mask and just cover that part of the face. And you can duplicate this, and you can move it around to a different part. You can shift it, and you can see that there's another texture here, and just rotate it and just place it wherever you want. You can also use hue saturation to change the colors. You can also increase the saturation if you want to, but don't increase the saturation too much. We will deal with that later on. Still want to have some color here, so I'll drag it down just a bit. And I also used the other stock image, paste it as a clipping mask as well, make it smaller again. And this is just to add a different texture to the image. Set this to lighten as well, and as you can see, it adds another kind of texture, but I changed the color using hue saturation. Probably something like that. I like this a lot better. And in this case, I like that soft light here, so I will not mask it. Also here, I will not mask this, but I will mask the eyes. So I'll create a layer mask for this, and I want to mask the eyes. I don't know if it's the other stock image, so I have to go down here and mask this. When you mask, make sure you use a soft brush, because you don't want to have hard edges. And okay, so that's how I added those colors here on the hair. The next thing that I added is some abstract shapes here under the eyes, and I used another stock image for that, which is this one. I'll use the magic wand tool. So copy it, paste it here, rotate it, and I'll probably turn this into a smart object, just in case I want to resize it later. And let me flip it and see how it looks. It's not looking right. I'll make it smaller like that. Like that. And change the blend mode to overlay. And as you can see, some parts of it are not really visible. You can duplicate the layer and try another blend mode, or just reduce the opacity. I tried vivid light and I liked how it looked, but I decreased the opacity to about 15%. So that's how I made that shape there. Okay, of course you can spend a bit more time and refine the position and maybe try other blend modes, because right now it's not looking too nice to me. Let's decrease the opacity of the overlay layer to about 50%. and let's leave it on 60 and this one to 20. So something like that. Maybe make it a bit smaller. Okay, like that. And you can group this if you press Ctrl G, and then duplicate the group with the Alt key. So press the Alt key, click and drag down, and you'll create a copy of the group, and just drag that to the other eye and adjust the size. And here you will have to use a layer mask. So create a layer mask for the group and use the brush tool, a soft one, and just get rid of this part here, and you're good to go. You might want to change the opacities because this part of the face is brighter, so maybe increase the opacity of the layers to make the shape a bit more visible. The next thing that I did is using an ornament brushes or floral brushes. I added those brushes here on the face, and it's really easy. You can just type floral brushes on Google and just find posts like this, and you'll find tons of them for free. And I will download this one, and it's from DeviantArt. Yes. So I'll download this pack and go back to Photoshop. So I'm back in Photoshop. I will load that brush set that I just downloaded. So I'll click replace brushes, go to my brushes folder, and it's this pack, Subtle and Spring brushes. I'll load this pack and I'll create a new layer, and I'll name it ornaments, and I'll just paint a few ornaments here on the face. I'll make the brush a bit smaller, and I'll rotate this like that, place it here and create a layer mask. And I'll have to reset my brushes because I want a soft brush, and just mask this. I just want this to be visible on the face, so something like that. So just use a soft brush, and you see how there's a smooth transition here. It looks a bit better. And I'll get that brush set again and paint a few more ornaments. Okay, so now I have to mask again, but I wanted to paint all the ornaments before resetting my brush set again. So okay, I could have done this a bit better, but I just wanted to illustrate how I made those ornaments there on the face. And I'll place those ones there. And okay, that's how I added those floral elements on the face. Next, I added a few light effects using a big soft brush, and I used several colors. So I created a new layer, set the color to color dodge, and just painted a few colors. When you are using the color dodge blend mode, you'll have to use darker tones of color because you see how bright they look when you paint them. So make sure you use a dark tone of color and just paint a few colors where you think it should have a bit more color. Just add just paint with the brush. That one was too dark, so I'll increase the luminosity of it. Let's use some red as well. There, and well, something like that. And then I duplicated the layer and changed the blend mode to linear dodge. And decreased the opacity to 50%. And on the color dodge layer, the opacity was set to 45%. So I will group this just to show you a before and after. So before and after, it just adds a bit more of color, and if you think it's too much, group them just as I did now and decrease the opacity of the whole group. And then you're ready to make your final adjustments. And the first thing I used is a gradient map, and I used this default gradient. If you don't see these gradients, just click this icon here and click reset gradients, and you should see it here. Click OK, and I set the blend mode of this to hard light and decrease the opacity to 5%. The next adjustment that I used is color balance, and for the shadows I used the values -8, -2 and 9. For the midtones I used -8, -10 and -3, and for the highlights 6, -2 and -12. And of course you can change the opacity of this if you think the change is too strong, but I like how it looks, so I'll leave the opacity to 80%. And the last adjustment layer that I used is another gradient map. This time I used black to white, and I set the blend mode to hard light again and reduced the opacity to 10%. And this is just to add more contrast, as you can see. And if you want to change the overall colors of this, you can use a hue saturation and just play with the colors, but you can play with the colors like that and just reduce the opacity. So you can see how you can really change the look of the final image. And on the final image I also added some text here. You can add the name of the person or whatever you want. I'll just type my name. And the font that I used for that is Billy Argel. It's a free font, but you'll see some credits here that says demo for personal use only, and you can get rid of that just by creating a layer mask. And you can select the text that you want to remove and mask it. And the same thing here, just use the brush tool and remove this credits here. And I think I used a gradient map, a gradient overlay for this, and I used some yellow colors like that. And then that adds some drop shadow, increase the size and increase the distance as well, just reduce the opacity way down. And you can add outer glow if you want, just increase the size and increase the range as well, and change the blend mode to overlay and click OK. Of course you can add any effects that you want, stroke for example, to make it stand out, and use the same kind of color but a bit darker so that you can see the edges of the text. And click OK. And I think I also added, I don't like that outer glow there, I added some one of my lens flare effects. So I'll go to the stock folder and get one of my lens flares and put it there. Let's see if this one works. So change the blend mode to screen and put it somewhere here. So that's the final touch of it. So that's how I made this portrait effect. I hope you liked it. Just experiment with colors and stock images and come up with your own version of it. Feel free to post your version on my Flickr page, on my DeviantArt page, or on my Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have more tutorials coming up, so I hope you like this one. So see you next time.